Welcome, everybody, to the Redzone Report brought to you by PLB Sports Entertainment, the makers of Josh's Jacks, the JA17 line of coffee, and the Stefan Diggs 14 line of hot sauces. Enjoy the show. Welcome right to the Redzone Report. This is Izzy, your host, as you know, and we are here to talk about the first part of free agency where Brandon Beane is going to have to start working some of that magic. Last week we talked about the cap and how the cap can be adjusted. Now, once they are done making their cuts and their trades and their restructures and their re-signings and all that good stuff, who are the options at the positions of need that I think that are going to be targeted for the Bills? And there's a few positions specifically. The first one being running back. Right, I'm going down the depth chart as if this was Madden. Next position is wide receiver. The next position is center. Then we're going edge rusher, defensive tackle, and safety. Everybody would agree that, generally speaking, those are our positions of need. Now, welcome into the show. Our guys, Kim Boomhauer, Sandra King, Nancy, Miss Nancy, how you doing? Bobby Hall, Junie, go Bills. Yes. So once Brandon Beane makes those moves, I think that the people he targets are going to be mid-tier free agents. He's not going to be going after any big fish this year unless that big fish is willing to take less than their market value, which is tough to ask somebody to do, especially in the NFL now. It seems like some other positions are going to start crashing. Like running back's already crashed. Running back's already down there, right? Devin Singletary signed a 1-year, $3 million deal to go to Houston. Well, the NFL is now being flooded with wide receivers. This year's free agent class is crazy. You got Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Kendrick Bourne, DJ Chark, Paris Campbell, Nelson Aguilar, Josh Reynolds, Marquise Hollywood Brown. Like, there's a lot of guys out there. Noah Brown, Calvin Ridley. Like, free agency this year is stacked with free agent wide receivers, and they're not all going to get paid. There's not enough money in the NFL right now. Quarterbacks are getting paid way too much for teams to be able to afford, like the Bengals with losing T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Can't afford to sign Joe Burrow and then Jamar Chase and those guys. You're going to have to choose, and they chose clearly Jamar Chase. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, but both T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd have looked good, namely T. Higgins. So we'll see what happens with all this free agent wide receivers. But, Gabe Davis is out there, and somebody's going to snag him up. Hopefully, not us. But there are guys out there that look like they can contribute, and they may look at going after a free agent and a rookie. Personally, I'm still team draft a rookie wide receiver in round 1. A.D. Mitchell is probably my favorite guy at the spot we're at, based on who should be there at the time. I like guys like Keon Coleman, but I think we should probably stay away from guys with more limited route trees. Guys who come from the Big 12, come from heavy passing programs. So you want guys like that who are going to be able to run more complete route trees, like an A.D. Mitchell. Now, looking at running back, because we only have one on the roster, we have James Cook. And then there's another guy, Naeem Hines, there we go. And then there's another young rookie. I'm forgetting his name. It's a long name. There's an undrafted rookie this past year, I think. And that's it. We don't have any other star power at running back. We don't have a power guy. And so there's going to be a bunch of options out there in free agency. I got some people in here in the comments. What are the choices chances we get Brian Thomas and what free agent wide receiver we might get. So we're gonna talk about the receivers here soon, Kevy. But Brian Thomas is gonna be a tough one to get because I think there's gonna be a run on receivers again because so many people need them, but there are so many out there. And people aren't gonna want to pay those prices. I think last year we saw the decline of the price of the wide receiver, even though some guys got paid. And some guys really got paid that probably shouldn't have. But yeah, we'll deal with that as it comes. But at running back, there's going to be a lot of Bills fans clamoring for Derrick Henry, and that price tag is probably not going to be within our range. Same for Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Saquon Barkley. Austin Eckler, same deal. They're not going to be able to get any of those top guys, most likely. They're all right on the age of 30, and they're going to be looking to cash out at the end of their career. Got some guys out there like Gus Edwards and Ezekiel Elliott who may be able to fill in. DeAndre Smith and Deontay Foreman are out there. Deontay Foreman's a big guy. DeAndre Swift is more of a bell cow back than most of these guys on this list at this time, other than Josh Jacobs and Saquon. Those two guys can carry the load, but I think that the Bills will be looking for a running back in the mid-tier here. So if I go down the list some, Damian Harris is still out there. Cam Akers, though, is a name that you may look at for a big body running back to jump in here. J.K. Dobbins is always hurt, so pass on him. And then Kareem Hunt and Rashad Penny, along with A.J. Dillon. There's a few guys out there who we can look at running back that can come in here and contribute. If they don't keep Ty Johnson, which I hope they do, because he's going to be very, very inexpensive. And my man Lance in the comments. Good evening, Izzy. What it is. Let's go. Hey, man, it is okay. I'm feeling kind of today, but be all right. Drinking my water and enjoying the day. Let's see. So running backs, I think that the Bills will end up bringing back Ty Johnson. Inexpensive. He was only $1 million this year. Maybe you go after a Chase Edmonds or Dearness Johnson. But I think that you stick with your guy, Ty Johnson, and you keep it pushing with what you got. Maybe draft one too. I'll bring back Ty Johnson, and I'll draft a running back. I was talking about Estime from Notre Dame. He's probably my favorite big body back in the middle rounds. I watched some tape on him with my buddy this weekend, and it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool seeing, a running back like that, because that guy is a hammer. He does not go down easy. And he's going to get you 4 yards if you need 4 yards. That's the type of back he is. So I'm hoping we can get somebody like that in the draft, along with Ty Johnson back, and that should help the Bills running back room, be stable. Moving on, wide receiver. It's a bunch of these guys out there, a bunch of them. Now, Mike Evans, probably not likely. Odell Beckham, probably not likely. But Curtis Samuel is somebody that a lot of Bills fans have been talking about, and kind of middle of the wide receiver market, could be a guy that the Bills target. A guy I like because of the speed factor is Marquise Hollywood Brown, who in the past has had some dropsy issues, but mostly because he's been thrown into danger. He hasn't had a quarterback who can hit him where he's not getting blasted. And if there's any quarterback in the NFL who's going to be able to throw a ball that this guy can't outrun, it's going to be Josh Allen. So bringing in a Marquise Brown with that speed, it's going to be something that is very lucrative for this team, potentially. His market value is set at around 14.8 per year, but I don't see him getting that much money. He didn't have as good of a year last year to be produced with that much money. So Marquise Brown is a guy I could see us going after. I'm not positive when we have to be below the cap, honestly. I think that the top 51 players on this team have to be below that, because at that point you go with the top 51 rostered players, and everybody else doesn't count. So we have to, I think that's what that is in March. Then you have to be under for the 53 come June. All right. So I would like for the Bills to go after a wide receiver like a Marquise Brown or a Curtis Samuel. Somebody like that who's an upper end, maybe a Josh Reynolds, somebody who's an upper end free agent, but not going to, break the bank. Calvin Ridley's out there, that name is out there. He made us pay this year. And I don't think that the Jags offense really complimented him too great. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of guys out there. Noah Brown, another guy Bills fans been clamoring about. But I'm telling you, I like some of these guys in free agency. Maybe you draft one and get one in free agency, but if you take like a Hollywood Brown, you're probably not going first round receiver. You're probably going third or fourth round receiver. And so the free agent will affect the draft pick, most likely, unless you get Hollywood on some deal that you can easily get out of and then ditch him after, but I don't see that happening. Now, next position, center, right? Because Mitch Morse saves us $8 or $9 million by releasing him, trading him, or whatever. He's on the last year of his deal, and he hasn't been restructured in a while. So his dead cap hit is minimal, and his cap savings is between $8 and $10 million. And I can actually find what that number is. Just gotta pull up another window here. And Mitch Morse. So if the Bills were to let go of Mitch Morse today, his dead cap is $3 million and his cap hit overall is 11.47. So we would save $8.47 million. But just by cutting Mitch Morse. So that's one guy that could find himself outside of a job, which I wouldn't want to see because this offensive line with him there is set. It's entirely set. We don't need anybody else. Freaking Connor McGovern came in last year and settled down our left guard spot. Cyrus Torrance at right guard, excellent. Not the greatest year because it was rookie year, but he played very well and didn't allow many sacks. And then you have Spencer Brown, who had his breakout year, and Deion Dawkins, who had his best year. But the offensive line is set. I wouldn't want to mess with it. But if they had to save money, $8.24 million is not something to sneeze at. And with guys out there like a Connor Williams or Cody Whitehair, freaking Graham Glasgow, Nick Altieri, you have Allegretti. There we go. You got some guys out there who can play. And will cost you less than that $9.something million, $9.24 million. So he's a guy who's got to worry about his spot. Now, if he takes a cap hit, if he takes a pay cut, keep Mitch Morse. He's one of the better centers in the league. But looking at some of these other guys, Connor Williams, right now he's valued at $13.5 million. I don't know if he's going to be somebody we go after, especially with his injury-riddled season he just had with Miami. So you'll probably end up looking a little further down the line. And I know a guy that we don't want to see is John Feliciano, who we just saw in the Super Bowl with the Niners. And we've seen him here before. He sucks. So I think we're good on that. Beane isn't getting any sleep. A lot of tough decisions to be made. You are right, sir. There's a lot of guys on this team that are beloved by the fan base that we're going to end up losing potentially. Tre'Davious White, we saved $6 million letting him go. Don't necessarily see that happening. But even without him, the cornerback room looks good with Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, Kyrie Elam, and Dane Jackson if he comes back. They also probably draft another guy, and they're good at drafting corners and secondary players late. It's just the reality of it. How comfortable would you be if Bates was the starting center? I wouldn't be uncomfortable, but he's also unknown. He's played center a few times for us. It's been pretty good, but he hasn't played a 16 or 17 game season at center. So we'd have to wait and see after a full year to tell. But he hasn't given me any cause for concern when he has seen the field at center. So that's where I stand with him at center. If they do choose to move on from Mitch Morse and don't bring in another center, I fully expect them to draft one, 5th, 6th, 7th round, because you can't just have one. And the only reason why we didn't have another center on the roster is because as a backup guard and backup center, Ryan Bates was there with multiple positions under his belt. So you didn't need one. But if you get rid of Mitch Morse, you're going to have to get another center on this team, or at least another guard who can play center. And that's going to be difficult. That's not always easy. The center is one of those tricky positions. So I can see the Bills going after, a Mike Hennessy or a Jonathan Harrison, just somebody down the list of free agents who are available to shore up that spot. I'd also hope they bring back David Edwards, too, to be more of a backup offensive guard, being able to play both spots on the guard front. then you can have Ryan Bates be a little more flexible. But yeah, they still need to bring in a center, somebody who can play center. Now, moving on from center, because there's not a lot to talk about there. It's a position where you got to be smart, but it's also a position where there's not a whole lot to discuss other than the fact that Mitch Morse is a better pass blocker than run blocker. We all know that already, so I'm going to go into it. Now, low-key, one of the spots that people are missing is the defensive line. We have very few defensive ends on the roster. We have Von Miller, we have Greg Rousseau, and we have Kingsley Jonathan, and that's it. We don't have any other defensive ends on the roster. We're losing A.J. Epinesa, Leonard Floyd, and Shaq Lawson if we don't re-sign Shaq, which we probably are re-signing Shaq. He's probably a guarantee to be on his team. He's too good of a run stuffer, even though not so good at rushing the passer. But he's dirt cheap, $1.3 million a year. You bring that guy to be in your fourth or fifth defensive end regardless. If you're playing a run-heavy team, you're sometimes going to see him start just because that team is, run-heavy, and he's that guy. But, out there in free agency, you got some guys who are more of a 3-4 defensive end like Leonard Williams, way too big for us. He was with the Giants and the Jets. This past year, he was with the Seahawks. Danielle Hunter, who's an outside linebacker who plays edge rusher, still an edge, could definitely put his hand down. Carl Lawson, Randy Gregory is another guy who's a free agent out there. Jerome Baker, Romeo Okwara from the Lions. I really did like him a few years ago. I was hoping the Bills would be able to get him. Zadarius Smith was coming free agent, and then there's some older guys like Yannick Ngakoue, Danico Autry, who we went after a couple years ago. That he chose the Colts, I believe. Guys like Calais Campbell. Now I know the option that most Bills fans prefer is to bring back A.J. Epinesa. Personally, I'm pro A.J. Epinesa so long as he's not going to cost us an arm and a leg. Right now, his market value is looking around 5 to 7. If we can get him on that lower 5 side, I'd be all for him being back as a rotational defensive end, and I wouldn't touch the room again, unless you draft somebody later on. But if they are unable to address this in free agency, you could see the Bills go defensive end round 1 or 2 or 3. Those top 3 rounds, in my opinion, are going to be defensive end, defensive tackle, wide receiver. That's where my head is there. Unless there's no one on the board for you there, or if there's somebody who's on the board that just sticks out like a sore thumb so bad that you have to take them. So those are my 3 priorities: is defensive end, defensive tackle, and wide receiver. Maybe not a good choice, but Clowney. Clowney had his best year this year, but I'm not one who's going to be fooled because of this one good year, because the years before that just were not very exciting. They weren't very good from Jadeveon Clowney, and he was to Cleveland or to Baltimore this past year, has the most sacks in his career, and now it's supposed to be like, yeah, let's go get him. If the price is right, sure, go get him. $5 million, $6 million, go get him. But if he's asking for that top end money, it's a pass for me. John Robert, defensive tackle, has me concerned. Me too, because we only have one on the roster. We're getting there, FGH. We're getting there. But, yeah, the defensive tackle has me concerned because we only have one of those guys on the roster, Ed Oliver. Hopefully we can bring back a Daquan Jones. He's older. He's 32, 33 years old now. So he'll be 34 going into this season. 1 or 2 years tops for him. He had a really good start to the season, got hurt, and then came back. Looked good, but didn't look as good. But you tear a pectoral muscle, come back and tell me how you feel. Hopefully we can get him back, and I'm thinking we can use some draft capital on some defensive tackles. You want to get younger and cheaper on this team. I don't see the Bills using 10 picks this year. I see the Bills using more than 10 picks. I see us trading back and acquiring more picks. So now, next position on the list is the defensive tackle spot, which I did mention, but there's a lot of free agents out there. Chris Jones, DJ Reader, Grover Stewart, Fletcher Cox, Sheldon Rankins, Austin Johnson, Daquan Jones, Justin Jones. Then it gets a little dicey here. Tim Settle, Tyre Tart, who I've never heard of, Javon Kinlaw, Christian Wilkins is out there, pretty good player. Quentin Jefferson, we've had him here before. He's a 3-tech. We're looking for 1-techs first. But I wouldn't mind Quentin Jefferson coming back, for a year or two. solid player, just was in the wrong position when he played for Buffalo. He was playing the one tech. He's clearly not a one tech. But you got some other guys out there: Shelby Harris, Taven Bryan. I see us in the middle of the market, maybe a Sheldon Rankins. I like Sheldon Rankins, big guy. I do like Fletcher Cox, but he's not really good against the run. It's just he's not. He falls short against the run. So Daquan Jones, Sheldon Rankins, those are guys I would target if I was Brandon Beane going into this offseason. Now, last position on the list is safety. Right, Micah Hyde is a free agent. He's probably going to retire. The way the letter from his wife to the city of Buffalo went, it just sounded like a goodbye. I hope he sticks around doing his charity events and all that good stuff. He'll be forever part of the legendary duo of Poyer and Hyde. And thank you very much for your achievements and your what you've given to the city of Buffalo and the team. But if I was him, I'd probably retire just because of all the neck injuries the last 2 years. Like, you got to be able to walk, man. You got kids. I'm a disabled veteran. I deal with pain and hurt all the time, but I still have my facilities enough to where when I do have grandkids, I'm able to hold them. And I really, really value that. So Micah Hyde, neck injuries are not something to play with. You have the wrong neck injury and you're not walking for the rest of your life. You're not moving anything. So it might be time for him to move on. And that's not me trying to tug on anybody's heartstrings. That's just where I would be if I was him. It was a good run, played 10 years, 4 in Green Bay, 11 years, 7 in Buffalo. And, didn't get my ring, got close, but had, an awesome career, made plenty of money and doing my thing. If I am Micah Hyde, right off the set, bro, I'd hate to see you get hurt on the field. I don't want to see it. But there are options out there at safety. Abuda Baker's most likely outside of our price range, along with Eddie Jackson, who I'm not really that high on anyway. But you got Jordan Whitehead out there, who I like. Chuck Clark, both with the Jets. The Jets are not going to be able to afford players here soon because a lot of their contracts are going to start kicking in. Plus, they're going to have to be picky because they have so many stars in that defense. So they're going to be looking at, I got to sign Sauce Gardner, and we just signed DJ. Is it DJ Reed, the corner? Right, and then they have their defensive tackle situation with Quentin Williams. They're going to pay him. They're going to have to pay his brother Quincy Williams at linebacker. C.J. Mosley's still there getting paid. Like, they got a lot of guys on that defense getting paid. So they're going to have to start being more choosy about who they decide to pay and not to pay. And so guys like Jordan Whitehead and Chuck Clark are going to be gone from there. Jaron Kearse from the Cowboys is free agent. Eric Murray. Now, all these guys in any of the positions I've mentioned are guaranteed to hit free agency. Some of these guys might sign a contract there. But one guy's got me intrigued, of course, is Darnell Savage from the Packers. We just got Rasul Douglas from the Packers. That turned out to be a great scheme fit for our defense. Defense in the Packers with Green Bay is similar to ours, and Darnell Savage had a very nice year for them this past year. Another name to look at is Tashawn Gibson, but he's a little older. But I do like him. Safeties can be a little older, but, ours clearly aren't having that luck with Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Poyer still looks fine, but with the injuries, not Hyde. Another guy, out there, Will Harris, another good little safety out there. And Xavier McKinney, a safety. He's coming from the Giants. He's only 24 and a half years old. So plenty of options out there. I draft one and I sign one. That's just where I would be. No, Emo Adams, please. You can't tackle and take bad angles. I'm not seeing who you're talking to there. No, Jamal. Oh, no, Jamal Adams. Okay, using I there. No, I'm not really for Jamal Adams either. He's kind of fallen off the safety totem pole here recently as well. I don't even know if I named him. But, yeah, I'd pass on Jamal Adams. I'd go younger if I could. The Xavier McKinney name is the one that pumps me up. Kyle Duggar, another one that really gets me going. And I like Terrell Edmonds. Antoine Whitfield Jr. is out there as well. That's a tough one because I think he's going to get paid. But Terrell Edmonds is a guy who could be fairly cheap, and he's going to fit the scheme just fine. I don't think we need beast safeties. McDermott seems to be very good at coaching up safeties and, making them better at their position. Look at what Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde did. They came from Jordan Poyer tearing or lacerating his spleen in Cleveland and bouncing between them and Philadelphia's practice squad And then Micah Hyde coming to Buffalo as the jack of all trades from Green Bay, playing all the positions on defense. And now he comes to Buffalo and they say, no, you're a safety. They go free or strong, like safety. And that's it, because they were interchangeable. So Buffalo made the safety position interchangeable and got two guys who were relatively unknown from two situations where they were not looking to get paid top money on the market, and they turned into one of the best safety tandems in the NFL in a long time. Probably the best safety tandem since Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas in Seattle. That one right there, I can't deny Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, but Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer have been studs. No worse than second in the NFL as a tandem since they've been together, but we can see it coming down. It's time to move on. See, do you think we will re-sign Taylor Rapp? I wouldn't be mad at re-signing Taylor Rapp. So Taylor Rapp is a good safety. He got better for us as the season went on, and I'm all for bringing him back, especially at the price. If the price doesn't change and he's still, under $2 million, yeah, bring him back. That's a no-brainer to me, because then you can draft somebody, and you have then Poyer and Rapp on the team if you keep Poyer. But if you bring back Rapp and you cut Poyer, then at least you have a guy who's been here for the whole year, knows the defense, and can help teach the younger guys. So I would bring back Taylor Rapp in a heartbeat. No questions asked. Even if you wanted like a 3-year, $9 million deal, give it to him. He can play safety. He can play in this league. He's good enough to play in this league, and he played very well for us again later on in the season. So I could see us bringing back a Taylor Rapp and then drafting somebody in the 3rd to 5th round, somewhere in that range. I like the safety from Georgia. I really like him. But, I mean, every player from Georgia's got fans somewhere, so we'll deal with that. But I have gotten through my list, guys. So if you guys have nothing else, this might be just a relatively short show today. But, yeah, I don't – those are the guys I would attack. So I'll give you a couple examples from each position before I go. So running backs I would attack in free agency are Gus Edwards. I would go after Deontay Foreman and Boston Scott. Those are probably the guys mid-tier range, along with Ty Johnson. Wide receivers I'd go after Curtis Samuel. I'd probably go after Cedric Wilson. No, never mind. He's a slot guy. And I think that Shakir's better than him. So I'd go Curtis Samuel probably, DJ Chark, maybe a Josh Reynolds, and Hollywood Brown. Those are the names, and Calvin Ridley. Those are the names that I would be trying to talk to if I was Brandon Beane. Backup QB. That's a good one, Roy. I'm glad you brought that one up. So if it's me, I draft one in the draft this year. Right? No more of this whole Case Keenum or excuse me, Mitch Trubisky, then Case Keenum, then now it's Kyle Allen. Before all those guys, it was Matt Barkley. Like, let's solidify the spot. Get somebody in there who's going to be in there for 4 years as a backup. Maybe, someone like a Jordan Travis, I think his name is, from Florida State. Had that gruesome leg injury. Bring him in here, nurse him with the health. If he gets to see some field time, you may have a guy you can trade. So, yeah. Spend. Need to address wide receiver in the draft, at least for wide receiver 2. Spend the money in free agency on defense and depth. Wide receiver, running back through the draft. I don't necessarily disagree unless the guys that we're looking for are not there. It takes 2 to trade, and it also takes for a team to be disciplined to not overdraft somebody. However, I see the Bills trading back in this draft. And so I wouldn't be mad, with a receiver in this draft who can play outside, inside. I'm hoping within the first 3 rounds we draft a wide receiver. First 2, personally. I would like to get A.D. Mitchell if he's available in the first round. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He's a big body, strong receiver, has the height. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's the prototypical size for a rookie coming in. He'll fill out a little bit, probably get to about 210, 215 later in his career, and just be dominant. And that's the guy I like at our spot. I know there's some other guys who are already bigger, like Keon Coleman. I'm not a big fan of those. So, yeah. don't disagree with getting a running back and wide receiver in the draft. You know, I also like Blake Corum. If Blake Corum is there in the 4th round, or that Estime guy from Notre Dame, get him too. But I still think that the Bills are going to be drafting defensive tackles, defensive ends, because they want to have them under cost control going forward. See, he says, I'm partial to Troy Franklin. Let me look Troy Franklin up real quick. Now that I'm getting some feedback from some of the BIB family. Troy Franklin. Oh, from Oregon. Okay. I do like Troy Franklin. I don't know what grade he has. I haven't watched any tape on him yet, so forgive me for that. I've seen him play, but I don't have a point of reference as to his measurables and all that. But I did like what I saw on the field. Hey, Izzy, I'm here. Go Bills. What position is the most needed for the Bills? Defensive tackle, in my opinion. First of all, we only have one of them on the roster, and we can't go get 3 bums. We can't bring back Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, and Linval Joseph. We got to bring, at least one quality defensive tackle. So I am pro Marvin Harrison Jr. LOL. Can we spread rumors that we can get him to drop? Yeah, if you want, go ahead and have that. But I wouldn't want to ruin somebody's life for that. And I know you're joking around with me, but yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not falling to us. Neither is Roma Dunze or Neighbors from LSU. Those guys are gone. But we could get one of the 2 Texas guys, Worthy or Mitchell. We could also get the I think there's another kid from LSU. Another guy I like is Pearsall from Florida in the 2nd round. I wouldn't be mad at that either. Ricky Pearsall, I would take him. Catches everything, good at breaking off his routes. To me, he seems like an ideal fit to play with Josh Allen. Just his style of play and his ability to innovate at the top of the route. Ricky Pearsall, I think it's Pearsall Jr., but Ricky Pearsall is a guy. Yeah. So one thing about Marvin Harrison Jr. is he's a lot like his dad in his approach. He's very stoic. He does not do a lot of talking. Like, he doesn't do a lot of unnecessary stuff. So he's going to be somebody that you're going to have a hard time with in that type of situation. Marvin Harrison Jr. is all business. He's all business. I promise you that. If we could get him, he's on a different level for many reasons. It's not just his physical prowess and how he plays the game. No, he's on a different level for a few reasons. One of them being he's great on the field. Another being his mentality is crazy. Brian Thomas Jr., my man FGH. All right. Look at Brian Thomas. I've heard the name. They're all melting together in my freaking brain. There we go. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, LSU. I like him. He's 6'4", 205. Another big body guy, but he had more of a limited route tree this year. Right? So being that he had a limited route tree, I think that it's going to be tougher for us to go after a Brian Thomas Jr. because of the route tree. If he's there and there's a Denai Mitchell there instead, I would take Mitchell. But if he's got a first-round grade on him, if Brian Thomas Jr. has a first-round grade on him, he falls to us, and he's the best option we have, I take him unless there's a better defensive tackle, defensive end available. Just where I sit on it. However, this could also diminish the wide receiver prospects that come later. And again, I don't know if teams have him as their 3rd wide receiver or 4th wide receiver. I have no idea where he sits on all of the charts, but man. See, RB from Missouri will be a steal in the draft, just like Pacheco. I have to look and see who that is. Send me his name, and then I'll check it out. Just say Marvin Harrison Jr. is a Republican, so all the liberals can cancel him, and then he can fall to us. That's horrible. He probably is a Republican now. See, whoever we get at wide receiver, they need to be a true deep threat. That's true. And Gabriel Davis is a true deep threat, so let's not get that twisted, right? He just doesn't catch the ball enough. He drops too many passes. And so when you have a guy who drops that much, they start to diminish as that true deep threat. But he is a true deep threat. Like, he gets open deep. He just needs practice catching passes. That whole gator chunk catches. It's a problem. But yeah, there's a lot of guys, and I'll be talking about draft in later shows. I was gonna do like a show today that included drafting, but we had the conversation, and the conversation went, "Hey, you know, the draft's in a few weeks. The combine's coming up soon. Maybe wait till the combine to really get into the draft stuff." And so that might be what I do, although it's tough. So I might keep going week on, week off, just so I have enough to talk about on my shows. All right, so I'm seeing Brendan Rice and Jalen Polk, round 2 and 3. So Brendan Rice is the son of Jerry Rice, from what I remember. He played at USC, I believe. Brendan Rice. There we go. Brendan Rice. Yep, played at USC. He's got a second round grade on him. I would say let's wait and see for the measurables, but we all know what happened with with Jerry Rice, who ran like a 4.5, almost 4.6 40, but turned out to be the best wide receiver in history. So yeah, I can see the allure of Brendan Rice. And then Jalen Polk, I've seen him too. Polk. Yep, I remember his face. So 6'2", 205. For his height and weight, comp is pretty good. I like that because he's not super heavy. He's not like Julio Jones, where he's like 220. So he should still have some good speed. He went to, what is this? Washington. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. He's the other receiver from Washington. Okay. Gotcha. You know, you think Washington, you think Roma Dunze. You don't think Jalen Polk as quickly, but, you know, I'm not as into the college game yet as some of you guys are. Let's see. Can we just have a season where our defense don't get decimated with injuries? That'd be nice, right? That'd be nice. Look, that's why you draft another linebacker this year. That's why you draft another linebacker. That way you got guys. Let's see. Joe Rowe says, Izzy, do you believe the middle of Bills defense is a problem? Those short underneath passes seem to hurt them. Teams seem to be successful. Oh yeah, when your starting linebackers are injured, yeah, that's going to happen. But that being the weakness of the defense, if it's just short routes in the middle, I'm willing to live with that, because that means you're bend and don't break. They're not getting things on the outside. They're not beating you deep. They're not crossing you up. They're just kind of hitting these little short routes to nickel and dime you. And eventually you have somebody jump one of those, and that's how that goes. Our linebackers, when healthy, were stopping that all day when we had Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano both fully healthy. And then even so, when Matt Milano went out and T-Dot had to go in there, he's up there blocking passes, maybe not at the catch point, but as they're in the air coming out of the quarterback's hands. T-Dot was actually getting good at that, so his coverage grade went up. But I think that the middle of the field can be a problem, but we need to get more bodies in there. And I think Terrell Dotson may have outplayed himself, this year, as in he played himself out of a deal with the Bills because he might be worth or too much financially. But because he Dotson back, and I would welcome Dotson back. I would welcome him back. After this past year, he proved that he can play linebacker in the NFL. A lot of good wide receivers out there. Leggett from South Carolina and Corley from Western Kentucky. I agree. There's a lot of good wide receivers out there. And so wide receiver may not be the move in the first round. People are saying safety. I'm against that unless any of the really good wide receivers are none of them are there. If none of the good wide receivers are there, and one of the top-notch defensive tackles and defensive ends isn't there, and the safety's there with the highest grade, you go take the safety, especially if you can't find a trade partner willing to part with the correct amount of compensation for what you're looking for. I have a feeling the Bills go defensive end in round 1. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked. Von Miller's 35. Groot's the only other guy on the team other than Kingsley Jonathan. You can't go in there with, the gnarled veteran, the young guy who's still trying to find his feet, and then the other young guy trying to find his feet, but he came undrafted from Syracuse. See, Schrader, running back from Missouri. I did see his tape. I was impressed, so I like him. There's a lot of guys in the draft this year. There was two guys named Washington, Noah and Malik, wide receiver from University of Virginia, and the other was a wide receiver as well. And gotta say, I was not as impressed with Noah as I was with Malik. Malik Washington from University of Virginia, UVA. That kid is Tyreek Hill in the way he plays. He's not Tyreek Hill fast, though. Right? He's not Tyreek Hill fast. But when I watched the tape of Malik Washington, I was like, holy crap. Holy crap. But we'll get into that later on another show because that's a draft show, and I'm already getting the draft stuff right now. Guys, hang on. How much will Groot be getting for a yearly salary when the Bills re-sign him? Dude, I have no idea because his seasons are up and down. Like this past year, he only had 5 sacks, but the year before that, he had 9. So, like, it's going to be hard to measure how much. But he's got a 5th-year option still, so the Bills will, they'll elect to go with the 5th-year option, and we'll see what his last 2 years look like. But, I can see them re-signing him after Von Miller's gone. But we'll see. But, guys, it has been a pleasure to do the show with you guys today. It's a bit shorter than usual. Usually I go for a full hour, but, 42 minutes. My first show after the Super Bowl, which I didn't talk about. So, you know what? Let me go ahead and talk about that for a little bit. And that'll be it. Probably be less than 5 minutes. The Super Bowl this year was not good. First 3.5 quarters were kind of blah. The last half of the third quarter and then the fourth quarter were pretty good. Overtime was entertaining, so to speak. But I was less upset with the result than I was the actual pace of the game. Just wasn't very good for me. So don't care if the Niners won or lost. Don't care if the Chiefs won or lost. Good for them. Congratulations. We'll see you next year. But until then, guys, it's good night and go Bills.